I'm Arya Schwartz, and welcome to the Winsidr show, where it's all about the W. A staple of the WNBA world is the LA Sparks. Winsidr staff writer John W. Davis joins me today to discuss the 2021 outlook for the LA Sparks. If you like our show, please consider joining our Patreon community. For less than a cup of coffee a month, you can directly show support for the hard work we do covering the W. Patreon.com/Winsidr. And don't forget to see our amazing staff's written content over at winsidr.com. New layout, new site. Go check it out. While you're there, check out our overseas tracker. It's live now. You can see where your favorite WNBA players are playing overseas all in one place. John, welcome back to the show. Good friend of the show. Glad to have you back. Let's talk some LA Sparks basketball. How you feeling? What's going on with you, man?
Glad to be back. I'm feeling good. Hopefully, the Sparks are feeling well as they look to 2021 because they have a lot of decisions to make, but they have a lot of
Yep.
options.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one, and we're going to see a lot of work from the de facto GM, Michael Fisher. I say de facto because ever since Penny left, the one person was placed with the title of GM, but we all know Michael's pulling the shots, pulling the strings. He did a great job putting together a roster last season. Obviously, the pandemic, opt outs, and injuries may have hampered kind of its full potential. I don't expect the same exact roster. I do expect a few changes. We'll get into that in a moment. But our first question has to be, how will this projected roster stack up against other teams? I'm curious for your thoughts first on this. Obviously, free agency hasn't started. Players, could sign, could re-sign, could move. There's a lot of possible free agents. But let's go with our assumptions of who we think will be on this roster and who we think won't be on this roster, and how it's going to stack up to these other teams in the league. Give me your
Well,
thoughts.
this is how I would flip it back on you. So I would say, how do you think the Sparks 2020 roster, if they had everybody they were supposed to have, how do you think that would have stacked up against the Seattle Storm when they had everybody they were supposed to have? That's my question to
Ooh,
you because I think that's how technically they should stack up against anybody. They should have all of those players in theory. Now, in practice, how do you make that work with salary? I don't know. But in theory, they should have all of those players because that was the whole point of getting everybody together and bringing Brittany Sykes over and having TRP and then having Chene and then having NECA and Simone and Candace and Chelsea and everybody. Like that was the whole point. Having Raquana, that you have this squad, Chrissy Tolliver to be that pair in the backcourt, that you have this squad that can match up against anybody in the league. And honestly, they matched up really well against the Storm last year. They almost won a game without NECA against the Storm. So, I mean, I think they match up pretty well, but it's who is going to actually be on the roster when it's time to tip off the 2021 season? That's the real question.
oh, it's a huge question. I mean, to answer your first question, how do they, if they had their whole team? If they have their whole team, I think we're talking about them not losing to Connecticut. Obviously, like, look, revisionist history, we can look back over this, and so many things, the butterfly effect would change throughout the season. Are they still positioned there? Do they possibly move into a top two seed going into the playoffs? So these are all legitimate questions to ask. Regarding whether or not how they stack up against the LA or the Seattle Storm, I still think I give the Storm the edge going into the season, not knowing who was opting out and who was opting in. I very much so looked at this Storm team as the team to beat, and honestly, there wasn't a doubt in my mind at any point this season, even when they didn't get the first seed, that this Seattle Storm team wasn't going to defend their 2018 title, excuse me. I still think Seattle edges it out. And honestly, the reason I would say that is more so because of the new players coming in. I personally have always stood by this, that you can have a great team. You can put together, the most all-stars onto a team, that isn't going to directly equal championships. Okay. So yes, the naysayers will turn to me and say, well, Christy Tolliver isn't really a new player. She's played with most of these people, and so on and so forth for a plethora of players on this roster. I get that. But at the end of the day, Brittany Sykes, in my opinion, was the biggest offseason signing that LA had. She brought an element of youth, speed, that and aggression that we didn't see, and cutting to the basket, like getting inside there, that we hadn't seen from other players on this roster. And I don't think Chrissy Tolliver was going to bring that. I think she was going to bring some 3-point shooting that they needed. So I still think Seattle wins. Do you think I'm crazy for that?
I don't think you're crazy for that, but I would counter that is that Christy Tolliver not only would have been a better starting shooting guard or a better starting point guard, but she also would have made Chelsea Gray better. So then you would have improved at two positions and not just one. And so I think that would have
Yeah.
made the difference and made them that much of a better team.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I mean, I think, Chelsea Gray, whether or not it was too much was on her shoulders this season, versus a different aspect of it, in my opinion, had a down season, a disappointing season, especially for somebody for many years now who has been pegged as the future of this LA Sparks organization and how they're going to win multiple championships. But I think it's an interesting kind of exercise to test our mental capacity of what kind of domino effect that would have. But I mean, looking at it, we saw some Tia Cooper, excuse me, Taya Cooper was a player who likely wouldn't have been on this roster if it wasn't for some of these
That's
opt
true.
outs. So, and she was a huge positive of this team.
Right.
Now, are we going to go into some crazy world where we're arguing about Cooper's more important than Christy Tolliver, a multiple championship winner? No.
No, she's not. But
But
you want to
that
know
being,
something? She's not more important.
yeah,
But before Taya Cooper had her inconclusive COVID-19 test, Derek Fisher was most likely going to start her.
hmm
And
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 that and
that's the
that was
thing.
before they switched to the Sykes and Weiss starting pairing that worked out pretty well. But who knows what it would have looked like if Taya Cooper starts 15 games in the WNBA.
I'll say this: the bigger question for me is, does having Christy Tolliver change? And I don't want people to take this in, like, I'm about to throw some shade, but don't take this in a non-respectful way. If Christy Tolliver is on this team, what does that do in effect of TRP's minutes in this past season? Because for me, she was getting way too many minutes. That's a one-way player. Yeah, she can heat up offensively in a on and off night, or not. You know what I mean? Like on a flip of a coin. Yeah, she could heat up. But like, I just too long was seeing Derek Fisher put minutes into her when she was a defensive player. She was a one-way player, and there was just multiple options, in my opinion, that were better suited for that. I mean, she's the type of player who, oh, somebody on their team is going off. Okay, Brittany, you try, Sykes, you go try and fizzle that out. If that doesn't work, bring in TRP. But like, in my opinion, that's what she was, a defensive specialist, but not on that same level as Elena Beard, who can actually shut down whoever she sets her eyes on. But let's talk about the 2021 season, because that is the topic of this
Mhm.
episode. How do we think? Let me just read through some of the players that, reserve, restricted free agent, rookie scale, unrestricted free agent, like all
Yeah,
of
just
that.
read the whole
These
roster
were just,
basically, but go ahead.
yeah, but, well, exactly. I mean, you got Simone Augustus, NECA, Raquana, Chelsea, Candace, Brittany, Rashonda Gray, Taya Cooper. Like, all these players play, like every key player on this roster is up for grabs. Um, it's going to be interesting how they lay out. My personal opinion, if you're asking me this, I expect NECA back. I expect Chelsea back and Candace back. And honestly, I almost, when people keep talking about, oh, they might not come back, or one of them isn't going to be there, blah blah blah, I almost scoff at that, because look who you're talking about. You're talking about Nneka Ogwumike, a selfless leader. You're talking about Candace Parker, a selfless leader who just wants the best, and is the type of player who would want, at least from interviews I've seen, from the way she carries herself, she's the type of player who wants to stay in her town, that she has made her home, in the place that she has made her career for the rest of her career. Because let's be real, how many more years are we going to see her playing? So I expect them all back. It boils down to me, are NECA and Candace willing to take slight pay cuts? And if you're Candace Parker, do you really care so much about making like 20 extra $1,000, 40 extra $1,000 when you're already making, tons more of that when it comes to your broadcasting career and all that jazz and other endorsements. I think she and Neck are both two players who are more than happy to take a slight pay cut to put this team in a position to win a championship. I think the bigger question, and if we do see any of them walk, the only reason we would see them walk is if we're talking about a situation where they don't see eye to eye with the vision of the team. And I'm referencing, Candace Parker's post season interview where she, after the game, which by the way, I thought a really cool moment from her post playoff interview was when she gave Eli Horowitz, the head of PR for the LA Sparks, a shout out and like kind of stopped the whole interview to give him a shout out for the hard work he does. Obviously, I'm a little biased because Eli used to work with us here at Winsidr back in the day at WNBA Insider, but I do think like so often us as media members, us as fans, and don't give the respect and the appreciation to the PR people, especially considering the PR people this past year who had to double time his other positions. So that's not here or there. But I mean, the only reason I could see this happening is if we see a situation where, Michael Fisher comes to them and says, this is the roster I want to build. You're going to have to take a pay cut for it. And then Candace Necker or Chelsea looks at that and goes, well, I just don't think that roster will stack up to win a championship this year. So I'm going elsewhere. That's the only reason I
Okay,
could see
okay.
that happening. Do you
Let
agree?
me get in
Disagree?
on this. Let me get on this. So,
Yeah, go for it, man.
first of all, I want to double down on what you said about. I personally do not think that Candace, NECA, or Chelsea will leave. And when you talk about taking a pay cut, they don't actually have to take pay cuts. What they have to do is agree to not get pay raises. Okay?
Mm,
What they make now, there's no reason why they need to make less than what they make now, what they made in 2020. There's no reason. Okay, I can construct this roster myself with this $1.3 million salary cap and still peg them in at the same amount of money they made this year. Because think about it. They were all getting paid what they were getting paid this year, right? And you had
hmm
everybody you wanted, right? You had Christy, you had Chelsea, you had everybody. I mean, you even have Simone as a wild card with however much money she had, more than 100,000. The same thing with Raquana. So you have some options on how to give other people some money you need, but you have to get that buy-in from Candace. First of all, you have to get that buy-in from Candace because what you were saying is right. I don't think that an additional $95,000 from the WNBA is going to make that much difference in Candace Parker's life. Now, I say all this to say, and I should have said this first, I think that Chelsea, especially Candace, and especially NECA, I think they're all worth the max. But if they all
hmm
want to play together, they cannot make the max because you already have Christy Tolliver getting close to the max. Okay. And she
hmm
has a long term contract. She's locked in. They're not going to renegotiate her contract and say, well, Christy, actually, you know what? We need to pay you less. It's guaranteed. So her money is her money. So
Yeah, no way she's agreeing with
yeah, yeah,
that.
her money is her money, and she purposely wanted that much money over that many years because she felt that was the best value for her, and that gave her the best self worth when it came to a WNBA contract. So yeah, I say all that to say that, and even somebody like Chinea Gumake, her marketing value and her name appeal, and the fact that she's been a multiple All Star, somebody could pay her a max too, but she's not going to get that from the Sparks, you know?
hmm
But does she really need to? That's the thing. Like, and I'm not trying to be in somebody's pockets and count their coins or anything like that. And again, I'm not saying that they're not worth the 185,000 to 215,000, but if they want to run this back, they've got to make some concessions on getting pay raises, not take pay cuts. Like I'm not expecting Candace Parker to walk in there and take the veterans minimum. No, no, because
Well, that's almost
right, right.
disrespectful at that
There's
point.
cost associated with Candace Parker playing. Let's say, like for example, let's say Candace Parker wants to bring her daughter on the road. That's a cost. She wants to bring her her mom on the road. That's a cost. You know, there are costs associated with her playing in the league. And so there has to be at least a break even point. But she her identity is her income may not be tied to the Sparks, but her identity is built around playing in LA. Like when you think of the LA Sparks, at first you thought of Lisa Leslie, and now you think of Candace Parker. And that's going on 25 years of this organization. There's no reason for her to leave. That's the thing. Where else is she going to go to play basketball?
Cha-
Where else is she going to go?
Well, right. Well, exactly.
Is,
And
is,
that's the
is,
thing.
she, is she
People need to
selling
be more
her home
realistic.
in LA? No. Is she getting rid of her business ventures in LA? No. She just bought a stake in Angel City soccer team with her daughter Layla. You're gonna make business investments in LA and then leave in the summer to go play basketball somewhere else? No. She doesn't even play overseas anymore.
I mean, you're right.
Everything she does is in LA. Everything she does is in LA. So logically, it doesn't make sense for her to go somewhere else. Now, she could say, I want a bigger voice in helping shape this team. And I want to be able to, do my recruiting on my own. And if I can convince player X to come over here, then we need to bring player X. They could do that. But I don't see it coming down to, oh, like you said, this team is can pay me $80,000 more. No,
I
I don't
don't
see it
know.
coming down to that. And I don't see the same thing. I don't see it coming down to that for NECA either. But I've said this on the Spark Report with Pavi though as well. If anybody deserves the max contract, it's NECA. So I can almost see as a situation where maybe Candace steps back and says, you know what, we got to give NECA this money just because. I mean, what would it look like for the WNBA or the Players Association president to not get the max of the contract that she helped bring into the league? What would that look like? Like, what kind of statement does that make?
That's a really good question. I mean, it's an important question.
What kind of statement does that? Yeah, what kind of statement does that make that this person who ushered in a new era of salary and protections and paternity or maternity leave and all of that stuff? What does it look like for her not to get the maximum benefits from it? Now I know that they have those off-season deals where you can get those endorsement contracts and things like that, so they can make it up in other ways. But what does that look like for her not to get the max? That's my question to you.
No, I think it's an interesting thing. I kind of laugh at it only because to me the message that it gives is like the classic WNBA message that WNBA players aren't doing it for themselves. They're doing it for the next generation. They're doing things for
Hmm.
the next people and they're trying to, stick their foot in the door, use that shoulder to open the door just a little bit more and hold it open so the younger generations can come through. And so what message does it say? I think it's like a message that's perfectly in line of everything we've seen from the WNBA Players Association and players throughout the existence of the league. But talking about this roster, I'm curious as a question for you, do you think this team needs to make any big offseason moves to put themselves in contention for the championship, to put themselves in a situation where they're in the same sentence as the Seattle Storm, as the Connecticut Sun, as the Las Vegas Aces? Is there, like, in your mind, do you think there's a one player that they need to bring in, or is it a multiple player
I
situation?
would say there's two things, and it's not necessarily one player. I would say they need to do whatever they can humanly possible to bring back Brittany Sykes. I know she's a restricted free agent, which means that somebody could blow her out the water with an offer. And if she accepts that, then she's basically putting the Sparks in the corner and saying, y'all got to match all this money. But
Mm,
that's the thing. There's hardly a WNBA player where this is their primary paycheck. That's the thing, man. Like all of these players, like Chelsea Gray, she goes to Europe to make her money. Even the fact that she got what was a max contract last year, she's still making more money overseas. Okay. and Brittany Sykes is making her money right now. So I don't know. It's kind of like it's like you were saying. We are asking these players to be selfless and not really think of themselves, but they are all worth more.
Hmm.
So it's like, do you just say, you know what? We all just got to get ours and we all just spread out across the league. And then we all just make sure everybody is getting their maximum value via the WNBA salary cap? Or do you say, you know what? We want to try this again for a year or two? I don't know.
I mean, looking at this roster, it's interesting because I kind of get what you're saying, but like I don't think that they need to necessarily add or bring a new player in. Now, obviously,
Oh, one other thing. Sorry. One other thing. So
yeah.
I think they have to also leave room for the unexpected because we did not
Hmm.
see, I know you did not see Simone Augustus coming to the Sparks. Okay? Nobody saw that. When I looked down the list and I said, this person's a free agent, this person's a free agent, honestly, I didn't even process that Christy Tolliver might even be an option to come back. So they have to keep their options open. And if for some reason somebody unexpected is like, you know what, I'm trying to play with I'm trying to play with my friends Candace, NECA, and Chelsea and Christy, then you gotta be open to it.
You really only because let's not forget about the players who aren't free agents. The Maria Vadivas, the other players who you know, m- I don't expect. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if LA did some trades with some of these younger players. But for me, if you're asking one element that we need to see, well, all right, on court, something we need to see growth in my opinion, is intensity. Stop being passive and reactive, and start being, setting
Mhm.
the tone. We saw that throughout the season. Candace, Simone, other players getting in other players' faces, saying, "Hey, this is not how you win championships. You don't be reactive. We need to see a team that sets the tone instead of reacting to the other team." But also, for me, I need to see from this roster a nice balance of youth and a nice balance. We already know they got the vet presence. We already know that they have vets that when the crunch time comes, they can deliver in big ways to championships. But my question is, are we going to see from, because I almost feel like there's this gap. They have like one or two players that fit into like the standard vet, you know what I'm talking about, where they're not rookies, they're not on the down end of their
Right.
career, but like the standard vet. And then they have one or two of those players, but then mostly they're older. And then they got a couple super young players who haven't fully developed their style of play into their level and reach their potential. So my question is, are you looking to possibly move some of those younger players to bring in some more of those middle-aged players, those middle of the ground vets? Because I think that might be an important aspect of the game for this team to win a championship in the next year.
I could see that, but I just don't know what else they need other than to play at another level.
Yeah.
What else do they need? Like you said, they need intensity. Well, they could do that with the players they already have. They need
Hmm.
consistency. They could do that with the players they already had. They need availability. They can do that with the players they already have. I think they do have good young pieces. Like Taya Cooper is clearly an aggressive player on the court. Even Christine Anigwe is an aggressive player on the court. Brittany Sykes, the same thing. If you can figure out how to get her contract back, I mean, you've got some young talent. Sydney Weiss is not necessarily an old player yet in this league. She's under contract. Maria Vadiva under contract. Maria Vadiva is, she's on the super team in Russia and she starts and she's one of their better players. So eventually there's got to come a time when like she gets more consistent playing time. But I just don't know what you do because you can either, bring back the same amount of talent where you have like a roster where easily 10 or 11 players could be in your rotation, or you cut it down, you make some trades, and you say, like, these are our 7, 8 players. The other people we have are just filling out the roster. We're not really expecting them to do anything, and they're just there to practice.
I mean, yeah.
But are they willing to trade Vadiva? I don't think so because they traded Brown instead of Vadiva last time.
True. Well, I also think like in that regard, I mean, we're not going to get into that whole trade, but in that regard, Vadiva has much more of an upside and has shown a a commitment to being the best player she can be, and she's also younger. If my memory serves me, I don't have that number right in front
Right.
of me. So like,
She is
like
younger.
in my
Yeah.
opinion, obviously, and we're also talking about someone who has played in the professional level.
She shoots threes. She shoots threes. I mean, she does everything you want a big player to do,
Well,
but she has to
exactly. That's
play.
the thing. You got to get her
Like
minutes.
it doesn't do any good for her to
Hmm.
be the fourth or
Hmm.
fifth big. But she pretty much has to be the fourth big if you have Candace, NECA, and Janae.
Yeah, yes,
She
and I
has to
don't
be.
know about that. See, like, I'll say this, like, Sinead,
Janae Agumake is not going to be the fourth big.
but in my opinion, if you
She's
want to
not.
win a championship, she should be. I think
Probably, but she's not going to be the fourth big.
well, exactly. That gets into different things. Flip it on the. We've talked a lot about defense. I want to talk a little bit about offense. What do you think was kind of lacking? Where's this team's identity? Because you know, go back a couple years, and I'm standing here and I'm going, Candace Parker needs to touch the ball every set just because you need to run the offense through her. She's that Elena Deladon player. She's that Maya Moore player. She is that superstar, that Stewie player. Um,
Mhm.
we're seeing, this past season we saw it a lot more. But when you have, I mean, is it a case? I guess talk to me about the Sparks' offensive identity. But is it almost a case of too many cooks?
I don't think it's a case of too many cooks. I think it's a case of sometimes the ball sticks, and you
Hmm.
know it just needs to continue to be fluid. Like you have amazing passers in Parker, Gray, and even NECA. All of them are way above average passers. Two of them are elite passers. Okay, and they just need to be able to have people to pass the ball to, if that makes sense. Like when I pass you the ball, shoot it. And that's why Sydney Weeks was so good early in the year before she, had her ankle injury, is because when she got the ball, she shot it and she was making about half her threes. Like you just need willing shooters. Like everybody on this roster needs to be able to shoot.
And
And when I
needs to
say
have the
shoot,
green
needs
light.
to be able to shoot threes. Yes, they all need the green light. If you are open, shoot the ball. Like that's what it has to be. Like no hesitation. I don't want you to get the ball and then like process if I'm going to shoot or drive. Like you have to be decisive. And that was one of the things that, even somebody like the microwave Raquana Williams talked about. She said, I have to be decisive. I'm either shooting or driving. And it's like an instantaneous decision, and everybody has to make instantaneous decisions like that. And that's why you liked Brittany Sykes so much on the Sparks. Is
Hmm.
because if she wasn't shooting an open three, what was she doing?
Kind of the hole.
Exactly. She was taking it to the rack hard every single time. And every player on the Sparks can do that. And so that has to be part of the offensive identity, is quicker decisions.
Well,
Now,
I would even take it
now,
real
now,
quick.
2020,
Well, real quick, real quick, real quick. I just want to say, and like that's one of the bonuses of having, a Chelsea Gray, a Candace Parker, and then the freakish athleticism from Raquana and Brittany Sykes.
right? But like we're talking about, the same roster that they had in 2020 is not going to be the same roster they have in 2021. So some of these players are just not going to be there. It's a decision on who. But offensively, obviously Candace showed that, she's still Candace Parker. She showed that. Offensively, we probably agree that Chelsea Gray can be better. Offensively, we probably agree that they missed Christy Tolliver. Offensively, honestly, as efficient as Neka Agumake was in the wobble, she still could have been better. She still could have been a better player. She
Hmm.
still missed some shots that Neka doesn't miss. And she still almost shot 60%, which is crazy. Like, if she would have made the shots that she normally makes, she probably would have shot about 66%. She easily missed
Hmm.
almost 10% of the shots that she would have made. So it's just a it's just a matter of if they think that they can do it. If they think they can do it, they figure out how to make this work. If they don't, then it's time to walk away and it's time to get your money. It's time to go to a team that's going to pay you a max contract. It's really that's the decision. You're getting your max from somebody or you're staying in LA and you're helping the Sparks try to win another championship. For most of these players, it'll be their, second championship ever.
Yeah, and honestly, the interesting part for me is to put on, and I'm sure it is for many, fans, listeners, talking heads, is you put on your GM cap. And with the LA Sparks, I almost look at it, and obviously this is a view of in a vacuum, but you kind of look at it in the sense of, you know, we have the talent. There's no question this team has the talent if everyone's healthy to win a championship in this league. But at a certain time, if you've tried it for a few years and it's still not working, at what point do you go, okay, we've played this out. We have the talent to do it for whatever reason, the chemistry, whatever you want to call it, isn't there. We're not getting to that next level. We don't have that. So we need, who is not movable? Who are we willing to move? And what moves are we willing to make to, you know, whether or not that, like, you know what I mean? Like sometimes,
I know what you mean. I know what you mean, but I think you have to let the players make that decision because it's the players' commitment. It's the
true.
commitment of Candace, NECA, Chelsea, and Christy Tolliver. If they believe that those four together can win a championship, then you ride it out another year because you've already been basically riding this same 3 to 4 players for what more than a half a decade. Just go for it again because you're not going to get better. I don't think you get better by subtracting one of them. And we're going to talk about that to end the show. But you don't get better by letting NECA or Chelsea go or Candace Parker. You don't get better by doing that.
Well, yeah.
Like who?
Who's going to be
Like
better, right?
because you're not trading them. Like yes, you technically could trade them for players that are similar or whatever, but you're not trading them. They're just leaving. Like this is not going to be a return. It's not going to be a one for one. Like they're just going to leave.
And then you're sitting there. No, I mean, I agree. I think the only question is, well, basically the question is to put it in like ridiculous terms, is, can a less talented team have more success? And I think just in explaining that question, it kind of answers it ourselves. But news broke at this point, what was it, 2 weeks ago, of the new signing of Vicky Johnson, head coach of the Dallas Wings. It's official now. She signed it. She's posed for photos. She's had the press
Hmm.
conference. News also broke that she was trying to poach one of the LA Sparks assistant coaches, Coach T, as I like to call her,
Yes.
the defensive minded specialist, a key element, a player or a coach, excuse me, who is clearly a player favorite. If you just watch social media, just look into those experiences, it's
Hmm.
obvious. Talk to me briefly before we close out this episode with a fun little exercise. The importance of bringing Coach T back as somebody who was there day in and day out for the past 3 seasons now.
Yeah. The importance of having Coach T, and this will be her second season.
Well, I'm
Okay.
talking about you being there
Oh,
day in
this
day
is
out.
this is my second. This is going to be my third season as well. So I've been there as long as Coach T has been there. But the importance of bringing her back is first of all, she is the defensive coordinator for this team now. She is the person who helped Candace Parker win Defensive Player of the Year. She is the person who put Brittany Sykes in the position to win second team all defense. Okay? But I think the most important reason the Sparks need to bring her back is because look up and down that coaching roster. Do you see any other women?
No.
What is the name of this league?
Yep. WNBA.
It's the Women's National Basketball Association. Like she needed to be there because she can relate to them in a different way. Like she is a women's basketball player through and through. I mean, she played herself. She's coached as a head coach and won national championships. She has coached with the Silver Stars and then, took some time off to do some family stuff that was very important to her. And then she came back and she's been coaching with the Sparks. Like she is honestly, to me, she is a future WNBA head coach. So I think it was very important to bring her back, and it's very important to elevate her and empower her to be the best coach she can be. And she has genuine relationships with these players. I mean, she keeps in touch with these players overseas. She texts them and she does all these different things to stay in touch with, honestly, probably even some of the players who might not even be back on the Sparks next year. But she's keeping in touch with them and she is, establishing that rapport and she's continuing to develop it. So you have to bring her back. And so it was very important for them to bring her back. But I'm excited for the last segment. Are
All
you
right, let's
ready?
do it. This is all John's idea. So John, I'll let you kind of
All
set
right.
the stage.
Okay. So people are always trying to, have the smoke on social media. They're always talking, oh, who would you start? Who would you bench? Who would you cut? Okay. So start is, the one position, bench is the two position, cut is the third position. So between Candace Parker, Nneka Ogwumike, and Chelsea Gray, who would you start, bench, or cut? Aria, you go first because I just did the introduction.
I'm getting cutthroat on this. I'm starting Candace Parker because she's
Uh
a
huh.
proven champion and she will will her team championshipness. I am
Yes.
benching Chelsea Gray because I think she has the most potential out of these players to bring a new
Oh my
championship.
God.
Okay, and
Uh
also I'm
huh.
benching her because she had a crap season this past year, and I want and I
Uh
wanna
huh.
see better from her. So a little message to
Right.
her, sit on the bench, get ready, you're coming back in. And then I'm cutting
Uh
Nneka
huh.
Ogwumike, which, cutting a former MVP is insane. I'm well
Ooh.
aware of that, but here's the other thing. Like, why am I gonna have, you know, Candace Parker as the starter and then another big coming
Mm-hmm.
off the bench? I need a little bit of rotation in that. I need a guard and a big.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm. No, 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 no. All right. I respect what you're saying. I do. You know that. But I'm starting Candace Parker. I'm benching Nneka Ogwumike, and I'm cutting Chelsea Gray because there is no sparks without Candace Parker or Nneka Ogwumike. There is no WNBA season without Nneka Ogwumike. I just can't put Chelsea Gray over them two. Like, eventually, there will be a time when there is no Candace Parker in the W and Chelsea Gray is still there. Like, Chelsea Gray still has
Mhm.
time. Candace Parker has shown that there is longevity to this sport. Sue Bird has shown there's longevity to this sport. Diana Taurasi, Simone Augustus. Like, there will be time for Chelsea Gray to be the starter in an exercise like this, but not
Not
now.
now, but here's the other question that you posed to me when we were texting about
Because
this.
that's the thing.
Yeah.
Like, if I ask Chelsea Gray this question, you think she's going cut NECA? I feel like she's got to cut herself. Like, I know you got to have confidence in yourself, but you got to be realistic too.
That's tough.
I don't know.
You know what? We're gonna start asking these questions to the players just to be a jerk. Um,
Put the player in there, like with two players who you might consider to be possibly better than them. In
Oh yeah,
totality.
like ask freaking well, you can't ask Diana Taurasi anything because she'll always say herself. But another interesting aspect of this that you brought up, and I'm curious to hear your response to this when we were texting about it. You said, you know, if you could only keep two of those three, who are you letting walk in free agency? And if you ask me, looking at the makeup of this roster, call me
Hmm.
crazy, you probably will. I'm cutting or I'm letting NECA walk because here's the thing: look at the depth of this roster. We
Yeah.
talked about this. You got Candace Parker. I mean, our Candace Parker, I think, gives that little bit more. And then you have the Vidiva, you have, the Gulich, and other bigs on this roster. But the depth
Hmm.
at the guard spot just isn't, the drop off is that much bigger for the guards than it is for the bigs, in my opinion, when you look at this roster.
All right. Well, you already know I'm keeping Candace Parker, and Candace Parker can play on the Sparks as long as she wants to, in my opinion, and she should be able to. And you know what? Mm, I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to agree with you. I'm not. I can't. I can't, in good conscience, say that they should let Chelsea Gray go, nor would I even think Chelsea Gray would want to go. Chelsea Gray loves Candace Parker. Like, if there was another player on this roster that she had to pick to go 2-on-2 versus the world with, it's Candace Parker. Like, Chelsea Gray does not want to play in the WNBA without Candace Parker. And with that said, NECA is her own person. NECA can play for the Wings, she could play for the Liberty, she could play for any team in this league and elevate them to a playoff position or whatever round of the playoffs they finished in last year, she'd take them to the next level. I don't think they're going to let any of them leave, but if I had to give an answer, it's NECA Gumbake as well, unfortunately.
Winsidr is your one-stop shop for all your WNBA news and conversation, but we can't do it without your help. Become a subscriber at patreon.com/Winsidr. For just a few dollars a month, you can help grow the game. John, thank you so much for joining us. We'll definitely be back come free agency, talk a little bit more Sparks, go a little bit more in depth in different aspects of it. Who's coming back. Once we have a little idea of the layout of what's going down, we're going to chat more. Thank you so much and have a great day.
Thank you.